This is Trish Thomas-Mink, and this is the story of Dorothy Hunt, wife of E.Howard Hunt. Howard Hunt was part of a Cold War era of spies that engaged in political and covert operations for the CIA. Hunt was called one of President Nixon's plumbers, someone that helped fix leaks. And along with G.GordonLiddy, he planned the Watergate break-in, for which he eventually served time in prison. The more I learned about the 20th century, the more complicated and intertwining the people and the events were. This is especially true after World War II. Now, Howard Hunt wrote spy novels towards the end of World War II. It seems from what I learned, he started working for the CIA about 1949 as a political analyst. He became station chief in Mexico City in 1950, where he supervised a very famous William F. Buckley. They were lifelong friends. And by the time of the Bay of Pigs, he was assistant to Allen Dulles, the head of the CIA. He later worked for a company called Robert Mullen Company, which H.R. Haldeman called the front company for the CIA. Then Charles Colson, special counsel to President Nixon, hired him. So though he worked for the president, he was connected to the CIA. And Howard was married to a fascinating woman by the name of Dorothy Hunt. Dorothy Wetzel Hunt was a spy for the OSS in World War II in Shanghai, China. The OSS was the precursor of the CIA. Her mission in China was very dangerous, and when she escaped, she went to work for Harriman's Office of Economic Cooperation Unit. The CIA investigated her for employment, but she didn't work for them, probably because she worked for Harriman, and it was there that she met E.Howard Hunt. The CIA considered her a dangerous and amoral woman. That was the viewpoint of a very provincial viewpoint of this men's club around how she lived her life. She was Hunt's mistress for months, and the CIA said he flaunted her around. They later married and had 4 children of their own. When they married, Howard Hunt was writing, and Dorothy thought that's what she was marrying into, the life with a novelist. She was not pleased with him when he went to work for the CIA or the government. It put a huge strain on their marriage, and Watergate and the plumbing jobs that he did for the president were a huge part of that. The break-in in June of 1972 was not the first job for the plumbers. They broke into Watergate in May, and they also broke into a psychiatrist's office in L.A. by the name of Louis Fielding. Fielding was accused of leaking classified documents to the New York Times about the U.S.'s involvement with the Vietnam conflict. Now, Dorothy was in Europe with 2 of her children when the Watergate break-in occurred. Upon arriving home, she began to take control over the money, and she put together expenses for the families of the men involved with the break-in. She worked through a retired NYPD officer by the name of Tony Yu. His name was Anthony Ulasewicz. That's how I think you pronounce it. He also worked for President Nixon trying to get stuff on Teddy Kennedy. He ended up being the man who paid off the Watergate men. By his own admission, he is also the man that had long, torturous conversations with Dorothy Hunt. She told him that they all needed about $3,000 a month per family. She asked for a big chunk up front so the family wouldn't have to stress waiting for the postman. Nixon went along with the payments. She collected monies for the families of Barker, Sturgis, Gonzalez, and Martinez, besides her own. She also collected monies for miscellaneous expenses, bail, and retainers for attorneys. It ended up being about $400,000 up front. That's $400,1972. And Nixon went along with it. He paid it. There was a special relationship between Nixon and Howard Hunt. They'd been friends since the 1950s. That relationship was at the center of the lies that came out of the Watergate scandal. James McCord from the Committee to Re-elect the President took over dealing with the writer's wife. Dorothy Hunt felt really uneasy with him. Subsequently, the payments to her slowed down considerably. Howard was telling the committee, creep is what they called him, that there were more incriminating They had more incriminating information on the president than just Watergate. Well, Nixon won his second term by a landslide, and the FBI just backed off Watergate for a time. Howard and Dorothy were in a fight to the death with the White House, trying to protect Howard. Dorothy told her family she was going to go to Chicago to give Christmas presents to her cousins and to make an investment. One rumor had it that she had a suitcase full of incriminating evidence against Creep and money to pay off Stevens' research labs. They sold the bugging devices to James McCord. Another rumor was that she was leaving Howard Hunt. She had over $10,000 in cash in her purse to take with her. Her plane crashed on December 8, 1972, upon arriving in Chicago. Dorothy Hunt did not survive. The woman who was a spy in Shanghai in World War II and who stood up to President Nixon in protection of her husband and for the families of the other plumbers was dead. Howard Hunt believed his wife was killed by Creep and those associated with President Nixon. Howard Hunt went to prison for 33 months in a low-security federal prison near Eglin Air Force Base. President Nixon resigned because of the Watergate scandal August 8, 1974. Dorothy Hunt's role in the Watergate scandal was more fully revealed by her oldest son, St. John Hunt, who wrote a book about his mother. During this period of time when all this was going on with the Watergate scandal, St. John Hunt was a young adult.